In the fall of 1992, in the vast, unforgiving deserts of Southern California, a 19-year-old girl with a gentle spirit and a troubled past was about to come face to face with pure evil. Her name was Jennifer Asbenson. She was young, naive, and simply trying to get to work. She had no idea that the man who offered her a ride was a hunter of women, a killer whose rage was a volcano about to erupt. This is the story of how Jennifer survived the devil in the desert. But more than that, it is the story of how a killer's uncontrollable anger over a failed attack finally led to his downfall. Jennifer Asbenson's life before that fateful day was already a fight for survival. She was raised in rural Southern California, in a home without electricity or running water. It was a world of isolation and poverty. Her mother was physically and emotionally abusive, and young Jennifer lived in a state of constant shame and fear. To escape her reality, she built a world inside her head. "I was ashamed and embarrassed about that," she would later say. But she had learned to rely on her imagination. Rain became shower time. Daydreaming shielded her from the darkness of her home life. This ability to disassociate, to retreat into her mind, was a skill she had honed from childhood, and it was about to become the very thing that saved her life. By 1992, Jennifer was 19 and working as a nursing assistant, caring for disabled girls at a hospital in Cathedral City, near Palm Springs. She was desperate to keep her job. She had been warned that if she was late again, she would be fired. It was this fear of losing her job, of failing in her attempt to build a better life, that led her to make a decision that nearly cost her everything. It was just before 10 p.m. on September 27, 1992. Jennifer had missed her bus. She was panicking, terrified of losing her job. Then, a man in a light-colored sedan pulled up and offered her a ride. She was hesitant, but she looked at him and made a calculation. He was clean-cut. "I could totally beat this guy up if he did anything weird," she thought. She saw a kind stranger, a godsend in her moment of need. She had no way of knowing that she was looking into the eyes of a monster who was, in reality, a former U.S. Marine named Andrew Erdiels, a serial killer who had already taken the lives of 4 women. The ride seemed uneventful. He said a few strange things, asked her if she liked porn, commented on how quiet the desert was, but nothing alarming enough to make her jump out of the moving car. He dropped her off safely at work, but then he asked for her phone number. Not wanting to be rude, but having no interest in him, Jennifer gave him a fake number. A white lie that she hoped would be the end of it. The next morning, Jennifer finished her shift, exhausted, just after 6 a.m. She walked out into the cool morning air and heard the crunch of gravel behind her. It was him. He was there, waiting for her. He offered to take her to breakfast. She laughed and declined. He then offered her a ride home. She accepted. "I didn't feel fear from him because he didn't do anything the night before," she later recalled. She got back into the car with a serial killer, and within 2 blocks, the monster revealed himself. His rage exploded. His face contorted, and he began screaming. He had called the number she had given him, and an old lady had answered. He knew she had lied to him. He grabbed her by her long brown hair and slammed her head into the dashboard, again and again. In that instant, the world turned upside down. Her head was spinning, the pain was searing, and she couldn't process the cruelty of the betrayal. "I remember thinking that it was a joke," she said. And then a gun came out. Then he produced twine and bound her hands behind her back. He put a hat and sunglasses on her, pushed her seat all the way back, and began driving. He was taking her to the middle of the desert where there was nothing, no one to hear her, no one to save her. As he drove, Jennifer's survival instincts kicked in. She began bargaining with him, offering to do anything. "I'll rob a bank with you, whatever you want," she said. But he didn't respond. He was cold, methodical, and fueled by a rage she couldn't comprehend. He was taking her to his killing ground. He drove her out to the desert near Desert Hot Springs, a wasteland of sand and rock. It was here, in this desolate place, that Andrew Erdiels began his ritual of terror. He was fast, precise, and methodical. He punched her, cut off her shorts with a knife, and ripped off her underwear. The only thing I could think of the whole time was, "I am in hell," Jennifer recalled. When I looked at his eyes, they were just black. I was staring into the eyes of the devil. He attempted to sexually assault her, but his rage and his own physical shortcomings prevented it. She notes with a dark humor that he suffered from erectile dysfunction, a failure that only seemed to enrage him further. Then, the horror intensified. He ordered her to say, "I love you." She tried, the words sticking in her throat. Enraged by her hesitation, he shoved her own underwear down her throat, using her bra to tie the gag in place. He was silencing her, humiliating her. Dissatisfied, he began to strangle her. She felt herself fading, the pressure in her head building to a blinding white. She closed her eyes, not wanting to die seeing his face. "I just remember feeling like I was gagging and I couldn't breathe in or out," she would later say. "Then with all my heart and soul I thought, life is so short. I'm in the middle of this desert being murdered." A sense of calm washed over her, and she saw white. She believed she had died. Suddenly, she was jolted back to consciousness. She felt her body again, and she realized he was banging on her head and pounding her chest. He was reviving her. But he didn't want to save her, he wasn't done. He wanted to torture her some more. She laid there, arms still bound, as he began to suck on her neck. Then he opened his mouth. "I saw blood and skin in his teeth and blood coming down his mouth," she says. He was literally biting chunks out of her neck. Then, he opened the trunk of his car and pulled out a bag of knives. For Jennifer, this was the moment of ultimate panic. "Hell no," she thought. "I might be dying today, but I don't want to be cut up with knives." She made a desperate, adrenaline-fueled run into the desert. She didn't get far. He chased her down, pulled her back by her hair, dragging her body over cacti and sharp rocks, and threw her into the trunk of his car. The trunk slammed shut. The last thing she saw was a bird in the sky, which looked evil to her in that moment. She was in the darkness. She was bleeding. She was bound. And she was being driven to a second location to be butchered. This was the end. But in that pitch-black tomb, a miracle was about to happen. Jennifer began to pray. "God, if you are there, please just let me break free from these binds and escape from this trunk," she cried out in her mind. And then, she says, a hysterical strength surged through her. The twine binding her wrists began to pop, one strand at a time. She freed her hands. She began to tear apart the interior of the trunk, searching for the latch mechanism. She found it. She knew she had to wait. If she popped the trunk while he was driving fast, he'd hear it and stop, and she'd be dead. She waited until the car slowed, and then she turned the latch. The trunk flew open. Jennifer jumped out and began to run. "Don't look back, don't ever look back," she told herself. But she couldn't help it. She turned her head. He was chasing her down the middle of the road, swinging a machete above his head. "It was like I was in a horror movie," she recalled. She ran as fast as she could, her lungs burning, her body screaming in pain. She saw a truck coming toward her. She was exhausted, spent. She didn't even care if it ran her over. But instead, it stopped. It was 2 U.S. Marines. They saw the bloody, battered young woman running from a man with a machete, and they immediately took her in, giving her a pair of jeans and taking her to a gas station to call the police. She was safe. But the nightmare was not over. When Jennifer told the police what happened, many of them didn't believe her. A 19-year-old girl claiming a man tried to kill her in the desert. Some thought she was lying. People she knew questioned her story. The police had no evidence to find her attacker. For 5 years, Andrew Erdiels continued to kill, snuffing out the lives of 3 more women in Illinois. He was a ghost, a phantom, and Jennifer's story was ignored. In a devastating turn of events, Jennifer later learned that the killer had claimed another victim, a woman whose name she recognized. "I saw news reports of 23-year-old Robin Brandley's death and how saddened I was by it," she said. "A year later I was grabbed by the same guy." Robin was one of his early victims, a volunteer usher stabbed 41 times outside a concert. The killer was still out there, and Jennifer was terrified. The key to Erdiel's capture was his arrogance. He was meticulous in his methods, but his rage had always been his biggest weakness. It was the rage that caused him to bludgeon a victim just for giving him a wrong number. And it was the arrogance of his rage that eventually led to his arrest. In 1996, a routine traffic stop in Illinois led to his arrest. A gun was found in his truck. The following year, ballistic tests matched that gun to the murders of the 3 Illinois women. He was finally caught. When he confessed, he admitted to Jennifer's abduction and to killing a total of 8 women. He also admitted that Jennifer was the one who got away. He had tasted failure, and that failure, a failed attack, the humiliation of his impotence, his rage, had been the one piece of evidence the police needed. Andrew Erdiels was a human monster. The Orange County District Attorney called him exactly that. When you think about the serial killings and terrible things he did, it's hard to think of Erdiels as a person. "He's a human monster," he said. "He doesn't deserve to be on the planet with the rest of us." He had been convicted of the murders of 5 women in California. And in Illinois, he had been sentenced to death for 3 others, a sentence that was later commuted to life in prison. In 2018, a California judge finally sentenced him to death. For Jennifer, this moment was one of the best feelings of her life. It brought relief, it gave her a second chance in life with the antagonist gone. She bravely confronted him in court and spoke words of forgiveness, not because he didn't deserve the death penalty, but for her own peace. "I forgive you for what you did to me," she said. "That does not mean what you did was right, not one bit. That is not because you don't deserve the death penalty, because we all know you do." But even then, the monster tried to control the narrative. He apologized to the victims' families, saying, "If I was a juror in my case, I probably would have done the same thing." It was a hollow, calculated apology from a man who had stalked and murdered 8 women, a man whose rage had been his only defining characteristic. Just 1 month after that sentencing, Andrew Erdiels was found dead in his cell at San Quentin State Prison. The human monster had cheated the state of California's ultimate punishment by hanging himself. It was a final act of defiance, a refusal to let the system, or Jennifer, have the final word. But he was wrong. Jennifer Asbenson did have the final word. Her story is not one of defeat, it's one of monumental, defiant triumph. Today, Jennifer is a published author, a motivational speaker, and a healer of trauma. She calls herself the girl in the treehouse, a name she earned while writing her memoir in a sanctuary she built in her backyard. She spent a year in that treehouse, lighting candles and pouring wine, bleeding freely onto the page. She relived the horror in order to heal. She has taken her pain and transformed it into purpose. She encourages other survivors to speak out, to know that there is hope. "I learned a lot from the experience, I gained empathy and sympathy for other survivors," she says. "If I had not gotten in that car and survived, I would not try to empower other survivors, I would not be a voice for them, I would not inspire them and tell them there is hope." Her story is a stark reminder that in every one of us lies a strength we don't always know we possess. It is a story of a young woman who refused to be a statistic, who looked the devil in the eye and escaped by the sheer force of her will. The system may have failed her, the police may not have believed her, and the killer may have committed suicide, but he could not silence her. He could not keep her in the dark. The last image we have of Jennifer Asbenson is not one of fear, but of strength. She took back her story. She took back her power. And in the end, she proved that the light of human resilience will always burn brighter than the darkness of pure evil.